Hey everyone. Tonight we're traveling back to an age long before walls, before words, when warmth itself was the greatest treasure on earth. Picture it, a frozen world under pale starlight, where mammoths roamed across endless plains of snow and small bands of humans sought shelter in the stone ribs of the earth. The air outside bit through fur and bone. Inside the caves, firelight trembled across walls marked with charcoal and ochre, stories drawn by hands that knew the cold too well. The smell of smoke clung to everything: skin, hair, pelts, the ground itself. Fire cracked and sighed in a shallow pit, throwing up orange light against the faces that circled it. They slept close, families, hunters, children, and dogs. Bodies pressed together beneath furs, sharing warmth like breath. The ground beneath them was lined with moss, grass, and hides, their first bed against the frozen stone. Every ember mattered. Every night was survival. But there was peace too, the slow rhythm of breathing in the dark, the murmur of stories about spirits, animals, and the hunt. The drip of melting ice echoing deep inside the cave. These nights were not just about staying alive, they were the beginning of everything: home, fire, sleep, and the fragile comfort of being human together. So before you settle in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy this quiet drift through ancient nights. And tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I always love knowing how far this campfire of ours reaches. Now close your eyes. Imagine the flicker of flame on stone, the sound of wind outside, and the warmth of bodies curled together against the dark. Let's drift back to when sleep itself was an act of fire, trust, and survival. Into the frozen world, the long winter comes. The air sharpened, its bite keen and merciless, slicing through the thin autumn warmth that had stubbornly clung to the vast open plains. It carried a new scent, the clean, cutting tang of imminent snow, a subtle shift that sent a shiver, ancient and primal, through your small, nomadic band. The light died early, retreating from the vast, unblinking sky with a speed that spoke of nature's unyielding command. This was the undeniable signal. You felt the season closing in, a formidable frozen adversary, and the instinct to endure, honed by generations of survival, began to stir deep within your very bones. Imagine the landscape, a boundless expanse stretching to the horizon, where the sparse, gnarled trees stood like skeletal sentinels against a sky that was already a bruised, heavy grey. The ground beneath your fur-lined moccasins, usually a familiar canvas of earth and hardy grasses, now felt harder, colder, radiating a subtle chill that permeated through layers of hide. The sun, if it showed at all, was a weak, indifferent eye, offering little warmth, only a stark illumination of the impending transformation. The first snows would soon arrive, heavy and relentless, blanketing the plains in an immense, pristine white, silencing the rustle of tall grasses and transforming the familiar world into a formidable, frozen wasteland. Frozen rivers, their once flowing waters locked solid under immense sheets of ice, would lie like glassy scars across the land, treacherous to cross, yet sometimes the only passable routes for the migrating herds of mammoth and reindeer upon which your very life depended. Listen to the profound, almost oppressive silence of the approaching winter. The whisper of the wind, already carrying a subtle, icy bite, would soon intensify into a ceaseless howl, tearing across the exposed plains, finding every crevice, every gap in your temporary shelters. No birds sang now, their cheerful chirps long since silenced by migration or the cold's lethal grip. Only the distant, mournful howl of a wolf, its hunger sharpening, would occasionally break the stillness. a chilling harbinger of the nights to come. Your small, nomadic band, perhaps a few dozen souls, moved across this landscape with grim, purposeful determination. Every member, from the oldest elder to the youngest child, understood the profound significance of this transition. It was a time for heightened vigilance, for meticulous preparation, for the harnessing of every ounce of collective ingenuity against a relentless enemy. The hunt, already arduous, would become even more perilous, for the great herds upon which you relied were themselves struggling against the cold, their movements slower, their bodies weakening. Every kill became a monumental triumph, providing not just vital meat for sustenance, but precious hides and furs for warmth, and invaluable bones for tools and shelter construction. The nights, even now, were stretching longer, deeper, colder. Moonlight, a pale, indifferent glow, would cast long, stark shadows across the hardening earth, transforming familiar landmarks into eerie, alien forms. The cold, a constant, insidious enemy, would begin its relentless seep, threatening to steal the very life from within, pushing you deeper into the protective embrace of your furs, your family, and your precious fire. The air sharpens and the light dies early. You feel the season closing in and the instinct to endure begins to stir. The long winter comes not as a gentle change, but as a profound, terrifying reality that shaped the daily lives of cavemen. It was a world of unyielding challenge where survival was a daily miracle, a testament to the quiet ingenuity of early humans who refused to freeze, always engaged in an endless struggle against the pervasive lethal cold, waiting for the elusive promise of spring and the sun's ultimate return, finding shelter in stone. As the long winter closed its icy grip upon the land, turning the vast plains into a lethal expanse of snow and wind, the immediate, overwhelming imperative for the nomadic band was finding shelter. Without robust walls or insulated homes, life outside was a swift, brutal death sentence. You follow the herd's trail into the cliffs where caves cut deep into the hillsides, dark, dry, and safe from wind, transforming the raw, unforgiving stone into the only shield against the bitter elements embodying the quiet ingenuity of early humans who refused to freeze. Imagine the air, sharp and brutal, stinging any exposed skin, thick with the earthy scent of frozen ground and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the deep, mineral smell of ancient rock. The sounds were no longer the distant howl of the wind. They included the muffled crunch of fur-lined boots on icy terrain, the careful calls of scouts, and the profound, almost eerie silence that defined the vast snow-covered cliffs. Moonlight over glaciers, now reflected on stark, imposing rock faces, illuminated the desperate search for sanctuary. Your eyes, keen and experienced, constantly scanned the imposing cliff faces and the rugged hillsides. You sought not just any opening, but one that offered specific, life-saving attributes. A cave mouth facing away from the prevailing biting winds, an entrance that was narrow enough to be easily defended and partially sealed, yet wide enough to allow passage for the group and the entry of light and air. And crucially, a cave that was dry, its interior free from the insidious dampness that amplified the cold. Listen to the rhythmic crunch of your moccasins on fresh snow, each step a careful negotiation across treacherous, icy terrain. Hear the low, guttural calls of the hunters, signaling a promising fissure, a potential new home. See the immense, dark openings in the cliffs, like mouths gaping into the earth, their shadows deep and inviting, holding the promise of protection. As you move deeper into the chosen cave, the temperature would subtly, yet profoundly, shift. The raw, biting wind that tore at your furs outside would diminish, replaced by a still, frigid air within. The thick rock walls, a massive geological blanket, insulated the interior from the extreme cold outside, creating a relatively stable, if still icy, microclimate. This was the profound magic of the stone. It absorbed and retained a degree of heat, making the interior bearable. The cave floor, often rough and uneven, would be immediately assessed. Was it dry? Were there higher, flatter ledges suitable for sleeping? Were there natural recesses that could serve as storage pits for precious food or fuel? Every feature of the stone shelter was scrutinized, its potential for survival maximized. Dark, dry, and safe from wind. The cave offered more than just physical protection. It offered a profound psychological comfort. To be within its ancient, unyielding walls was to be shielded from the terrifying vastness of the frozen world, from the unseen dangers that roamed the plains, from the relentless assault of the elements. It was a natural fortress, a haven wrested from the very heart of the earth. This was not a permanent dwelling, but a seasonal one, a crucial adaptation for surviving the Ice Age. The knowledge of these shelters, their locations, their specific attributes, was a vital part of the ancestral wisdom passed down through generations. It was a profound understanding of their environment, a testament to their capacity for collective problem-solving and their unyielding will to survive. You follow the herd's trail into the cliffs where caves cut deep into the hillsides, dark, dry, and safe from wind. Finding shelter in stone was a pervasive, fundamental ritual for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a slow, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the earliest audacious sparks of human creativity in the face of overwhelming cold, and enduring countless nights under vast frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring strength and silent protection of the earth itself, the warmth of the fire pit. With the sanctuary of the cave secured, pushing back the immediate terror of the wind and snow, humanity's most powerful ally, its very lifeline, took center stage. The warmth of the fire pit was not merely a convenience, but a profound declaration of human defiance against the lethal cold. Stone rings meticulously built by ancient hands still bore the marks of countless flames, transforming a humble hearth into the very pulse of life itself. Fire was more than light. It was life, providing warmth, cooking vital food, and offering an unassailable safety from predators, the beating heart of survival in a world designed to freeze. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence now permeated by the dry, sharp scent of burning fuel. The sounds were no longer the distant howl of the wind. They included the rhythmic crackle and pop of burning wood, the contented hiss of melting snow near the flames, and the hushed murmurs of a family huddled close. Sparks rising from a smouldering hearth, tiny incandescent stars danced upwards into the vast, dark cave, contained within its carefully constructed ring of stones. The fire pit, typically a circular or oval arrangement of carefully selected stones, was a masterpiece of ancient engineering. Its stones, chosen for their ability to retain and radiate heat, served multiple vital functions. They contained the precious flame, preventing it from spreading uncontrollably within the cave, a crucial safety measure in a shelter lined with dry furs and tinder. More importantly, they absorbed the immense heat of the fire, slowly releasing it outwards, creating a more consistent, lingering warmth even after the flames dwindled. Listen to the rhythmic crackle and pop of the burning wood, a constant, comforting symphony against the profound silence of the frozen night. Hear the contented sizzle of fresh meat roasting over the flames, its rich, savory aroma filling the cave, promising strength and sustenance. See the dancing flames, their orange and red hues, pushing back the encroaching darkness, illuminating the cave walls, transforming rough stone into a canvas of shifting shadows, creating a dynamic, living heart for the human cluster. Warmth was the fire pit's most immediate and vital gift. In temperatures that could instantly kill, the radiating heat of the hearth was the difference between life and death. Bodies, stiff and shivering, would visibly relax as they absorbed its gentle caress, allowing exhausted muscles a chance to thaw, to recover. It was a profound, visceral comfort, a slow thawing of the night's deep chill. But fire also cooked food, making tough meat more digestible, unlocking nutrients, and killing dangerous parasites. Raw meat, while sustenance, carried risks. Cooked meat, infused with the taste of smoke, was a vital fuel for the human body, transforming calories into the energy needed to battle the cold and pursue the next hunt. And crucially, fire offered safety from predators. Lions, wolves, bears, and other formidable beasts, masters of the night, were instinctively wary of flame. Its flickering light, its crackling sounds, and its pungent smoke formed a psychological and physical barrier, pushing back the unseen dangers that lurked just beyond its reach. The eyes that gleamed at the edge of the darkness would hesitate, held at bay by the defiant glow. Stone rings built by ancient hands still bear the marks of flame. Fire was more than light. It was life itself. The warmth of the fire pit was a pervasive, fundamental reality for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival, and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring, life-giving flame, smoke and breath. Within the precarious sanctuary of an Ice Age cave, after the precious spark had been coaxed into flame, and the stone fire pit began to radiate its fragile warmth, a complex and often uncomfortable atmosphere developed. Smoke and breath mingled, transforming the interior into a steaming, pungent pocket of life. In the narrow space, smoke curled and clung, making eyes water, but crucially keeping frost from forming on the walls, a profound if challenging balance between the desperate need for warmth and the struggle for clean air, embodying the quiet ingenuity of early humans who refused to freeze. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of a thriving fire. They included the soft hiss of dwindling embers, the gentle breathing of a family huddled close, and the low, rhythmic coughs of humans and animals alike. Smoke curling and clinging, a constant grey plume danced upwards into the vast, dark cave, creating a perpetual haze. The fire, carefully tended and kept low to conserve precious fuel, was the heart of the home. Its warmth, however minimal as the hours passed, was absolutely essential for survival. But caves rarely possessed efficient chimneys or ventilation systems. Smoke, rather than rising cleanly, would drift lazily upwards, often clinging to the ceiling, slowly filling the upper reaches of the cave before gradually seeping out through the mouth or through cracks and crevices. Listen to the soft, rhythmic breathing of your family, their snores, the occasional cough that echoed in the smoky air. Hear the subtle movements of the furs, the rustle of hides as bodies shifted. See the thick haze illuminated by the flickering firelight, creating a veiled, ethereal atmosphere where familiar faces became indistinct, almost ghostly. The air inside became perpetually thick, pungent, and grey with wood smoke. It permeated everything, your fur garments, your hair, the animal hides that served as bedding, even the very food you consumed. It coated the inner surfaces of the cave, leaving a permanent, dark stain on the rock, giving the entire dwelling a characteristic, acrid perfume. This was the intimate scent of home, however choking, however inescapable. As you lay wrapped in your furs, trying to coax sleep to your weary body, the smoke was a constant presence. It irritated the eyes, making them water and sting, causing them to burn with a persistent discomfort. It irritated the lungs, provoking a persistent racking cough, a deep rasp in the throat that was an almost universal companion of Ice Age life. You would breathe it in constantly, its acrid tang a fundamental component of the air you shared with your family. Your own breath, when exhaled, would plume visibly in the frigid air, a dense, white cloud that lingered for a moment before mixing with the pervasive smoke. These visible exhalations mingled with the thick haze of the fire turned the caves into steaming, pungent pockets of life, a humid enclosed atmosphere where human and animal warmth and breath combined with the fire smoke to create a unique, if uncomfortable thermal environment. And crucially, the smoke often kept frost from forming on the walls. The increased humidity and slightly higher temperature, coupled with the constant movement of air from the fire, helped prevent the deadly accumulation of ice crystals, which would have amplified the cold and dampness, making the cave uninhabitable. In the narrow space, smoke curls and clings, making eyes water, but keeping frost from forming on the walls. Smoke and breath were a pervasive, fundamental reality for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring smoky breath of their shared life. The silent snow outside. Within the fragile sanctuary of the cave, where the fire pit glowed and the air hung thick with smoke and human breath, the greatest terror of the Ice Age winter often manifested as an overwhelming, profound silence. Beyond the cave mouth, snow buried the world in silence. The vast, frozen plains, the gnarled forests, the towering glaciers, all were swallowed by an immense, suffocating blanket of white, transforming the hostile wilderness into an eerily quiet, yet profoundly menacing void. Inside, the glow of embers became the only sun, a fragile beacon against the endless, silent dark. Imagine the air outside, sharp and brutal, stinging any exposed skin, now filled not with the howl of wind, but with a profound, almost unnatural stillness. The sounds were no longer the distant cries of predators. They included the soft crackle of a dwindling fire, the gentle breathing of a family huddled close, and the profound, almost eerie absence of all other natural sounds. Moonlight over glaciers, now reflected on an unbroken expanse of white, illuminated a world utterly silenced, transformed by snow. The first heavy snows had blanketed the plains, turning the familiar landscape into a featureless expanse of white. Then subsequent blizzards had piled more and more, until the world outside the cave mouth was an undulating sea of deep, unbroken snow. It covered every track, muffled every echo, absorbed every sound, creating a silence so profound that it pressed in on the senses, amplifying the smallest internal sounds of the cave. Listen to the profound, almost eerie silence outside, a stillness so complete that it seemed to absorb all sound, even the rustle of a distant leaf or the subtle creak of ancient ice. Hear the soft crackle of the fire, its warmth now seeming even more precious, its flames dancing against the backdrop of an overwhelming stillness. See the pale moonlight, if the clouds had cleared, casting long, stark shadows across the vast, snow-covered plain, transforming the familiar landscape into a tableau of frozen, silent beauty. The silence was both a blessing and a source of subtle unease. On one hand, it offered a fleeting moment of peace, a respite from the relentless assault of the wind and the chaos of the storm. The absence of the predator's cry, the lack of rival human movement, allowed for deeper rest, for a momentary relaxation of the vigilant senses. It was a profound psychological comfort, a confirmation that the immediate external dangers had, for a time, receded. But the silent snow could also be profoundly unsettling. It could hide new dangers, masking the stealthy approach of predators or rival humans, their movements muffled by the deep snow. The very completeness of the quiet could feel unnatural, almost ominous, stirring ancient fears of the unknown, of the hidden presences that thrived in such stillness. The immense, white emptiness outside could induce a profound sense of isolation, making the cave feel like a tiny, fragile island in a world swallowed by cold. Inside, the glow of embers became the only sun. The fire, carefully guarded, was their sole source of light, their defiant beacon against the all-encompassing darkness. Its warmth, however minimal, was a tangible connection to life, a small sun in a world without one. Beyond the cave mouth, snow buries the world in silence. Inside, the glow of embers becomes the only sun. The silent snow outside was a pervasive, fundamental reality for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast frozen skies, forever tethered to the fragile warmth of their fire, a testament to their quiet ingenuity against the immense, beautiful, and utterly merciless grip of winter. The craft of warmth, animal hides and furs. In the merciless grip of the Ice Age, where the cold could kill with terrifying swiftness, humanity's ability to survive hinged not just on fire and shelter, but on its profound ingenuity in harnessing the bounty of the hunted. The craft of animal hides and furs was a vital art. Pelts were not luxury, they were armor. Layer upon layer meticulously scraped, tanned, and stitched by bone needles, these transformed skins were worn through endless nights, becoming an indispensable, mobile shield against the frost, defining the very essence of human warmth and endurance in a world utterly indifferent to exposed flesh. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the earthy scent of cured hide, mingled with the pungent aroma of wood smoke and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of fire. They included the rhythmic scraping of stone tools against tough hides, the soft rustle of drying fur, and the gentle thud of a bone needle piercing thick leather. Pelts piled thick on cold ground, a testament to endless labor, illuminated by the flickering firelight, became the soft, warm heart of their fragile sanctuary. The primary source of these life-saving hides and furs was the successful hunt of large mammals, mammoth, reindeer, bison, cave bear. Each animal killed was more than just meat. It was a source of precious hide, vital for survival. After the butchering, the laborious and often gruesome task of preparing the skins began. The hides were meticulously scraped clean of flesh and fat with sharp flint or bone tools, then laboriously tanned or cured using natural substances like animal brains, urine, or smoke to prevent rot and make them pliable. This was a long, painstaking process, often taking days or weeks, demanding immense skill and patience. Listen to the rhythmic scraping of a bone tool against a fresh hide, removing stubborn remnants of flesh and sinew, the sound of human ingenuity at its most fundamental. Hear the soft rustle of drying furs stretched taut on wooden frames outside the cave, curing in the sun or near the smoke of the fire, slowly transforming from raw flesh into soft, insulating material. See the collection of skins, a diverse array of textures and colors, the thick, shaggy fur of a mammoth, the dense, warm hide of a reindeer, the protective pelt of a bear. Each one a testament to a successful hunt and meticulous preparation. Once cured, these skins and furs were then transformed into the indispensable items of daily life. Mammoth hides, immense and heavy, were used to cover cave entrances or for tent shelters. Smaller, softer furs were cut and meticulously stitched together to create warm, insulating cloaks, tunics, leggings and hoods. The ability to sew with bone needles and sinew thread, creating tailored garments, was a revolutionary technological advancement. Pelts were not luxury, they were armor. Layer upon layer of these furs became their clothing, their bedding, their only barrier against the lethal cold. Robes were doubled or tripled, with fur facing both inwards towards the body and outwards to the elements, trapping multiple insulating air pockets. Seams were meticulously sealed, sometimes with tree resin or fat, to make them windproof and water-resistant. This meticulous craftsmanship was essential for retaining body heat, transforming fragile human bodies into resilient, mobile fortresses against the cold. At night, these furs became their beds. Piles of soft, insulating pelts were spread over the hard, cold stone of the cave floor, creating a precious, warm nest. More furs were draped over the sleeping bodies, creating a communal blanket, trapping the precious body heat and providing an almost impenetrable shield against the relentless frost. Pelts were not luxury. They were armor, layer upon layer, stitched by bone needles and worn through endless nights. Animal hides and furs were a pervasive, fundamental craft of warmth for cavemen, transforming the bounty of the hunt into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival, and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever protected by the life-giving warmth and resilience of their meticulously crafted animal skins. The sleeping circle. In the brutal, unforgiving grip of an Ice Age winter, where the cold could kill with terrifying swiftness and individual warmth was a fleeting luxury, humanity's most profound and effective defense against freezing to death was not a technological marvel, but the simple, primal power of human proximity. The sleeping circle was a fundamental, ingrained strategy. Bodies pressed close. Family, tribe, even dogs, all forming one living shape against the cold, transforming their communal shelter into a pulsing, breathing furnace, a testament to the profound bonds forged in the crucible of winter survival. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human and animal presence, now permeated by a palpable, almost suffocating closeness. The sounds were no longer the distant howl of the wind. They included the soft, rhythmic breathing of many bodies, the occasional sigh, the gentle rustle of animal hides, and the low, comforting hum of collective life. Breath rising in the stillness of an Ice Age night, a visible affirmation of warmth, mingled with the shared exhalations of the huddle. As the fire dwindled to its lowest glow, casting long, dancing shadows, the entire family group would arrange themselves for sleep. Their bed was often a large communal pallet on the packed earth floor, thickly layered with reeds, grasses, and insulating furs. Into this single designated space, parents, children, elders, and often their valuable domesticated dogs would pack together, limbs intertwined, bodies pressed close, creating a single, dense mass of warmth. Listen to the gentle, rhythmic breathing of your family members and the dogs, their soft snores, the quiet whimpers of an infant nestled close to its mother's breast. Hear the subtle movements of the buffalo robes, the rustle of hides as bodies instinctively sought a closer, warmer position. See the indistinct forms of the huddle in the dim light of the dying fire, a protective mound of human and animal life against the immense, cold emptiness outside. The benefits of this communal sleeping were immense, crucial for survival. Each human and animal body, burning its own internal furnace, contributed its heat to the collective. The air trapped between the intertwined forms warmed and contained by their combined heat, and the thick furs became a personal microclimate, a remarkably effective defense against the biting cold that seeped from the frozen ground and permeated the cave walls. Without this shared heat, especially on the coldest nights, enduring the long hours would be an almost impossible feat, particularly for the most vulnerable. The cold, however, was a persistent adversary. It found its way in through any gap in the furs, seeped up from the damp ground, and settled in the open spaces. But the sheer density of the human-animal huddle, combined with their layered furs, created a formidable barrier. The discomfort of the cramped quarters, the persistent itching of shared animal hides, these were small prices to pay for the invaluable warmth it provided. This profound proximity, born of necessity, forged an unbreakable bond of solidarity and shared fate within the tribe. They relied on each other not just for hunting and gathering, but in the intimate, terrifying struggle against the elements. Their shared warmth, their shared misery, their shared endurance strengthened the ties that held the band together. Bodies pressed close, family, tribe, even dogs, all forming one living shape against the cold. The sleeping circle was a pervasive, fundamental craft of warmth for cavemen, transforming their raw social bonds into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies forever tethered to the life-giving warmth and resilience of each other, a profound secret of how they refused to freeze. The hearth's keeper. In the bone-chilling depths of an Ice Age winter, where fire was literally the difference between life and death, its precious flame could never be left to chance. To lose it in the long, dark nights of lethal cold was to invite swift, brutal death by hypothermia or predation. This profound necessity gave rise to one of the most vital and revered roles within the small nomadic band, the hearth's keeper. Someone always stayed awake, feeding the fire, guarding against the dark that swallowed sound and time, their unwavering vigilance a quiet, profound ritual, ensuring the fragile spark of life endured, a silent testament to their critical importance. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of a thriving fire. They included the soft crackle of dwindling embers, the gentle hiss of melting snow near the hearth, and the hushed, rhythmic breathing of a family in fitful sleep. The glow of embers under buffalo hides casting dancing shadows slowly faded to a deep, tenacious red, kept alive by the silent, watchful attention of the keeper. The hearth's keeper, often an elder whose hunting days were waning, or a particularly reliable and patient individual, bore an immense responsibility. Their duty was paramount, to carefully manage the dwindling fuel to ensure that the precious embers did not die entirely, to nurture the fragile spark through the longest, coldest hours of the night. This was not a passive role, but an active, ceaseless vigil, the most crucial battle against the night. Listen to the soft, rhythmic breathing of the hearth's keeper, their body hunched close to the fire pit, wrapped in thick furs, their eyes burning with fatigue, yet fixed on the embers. Hear the gentle scrape of a crude stick against cold ash, seeking the glowing heart, carefully adding the smallest, driest twigs, coaxing a brief, desperate flare of light and warmth. Each such act was a small, vital battle against the encroaching darkness and the lethal cold. The cold was insidious, an enemy that knew no surrender. It permeated the cave, testing the keepers' endurance, tempting them with the seductive lure of sleep. They would shiver, huddle deeper into their furs, but their gaze remained fixed, unwavering. They understood the profound consequences of failure, the rapid onset of hypothermia for the sleeping group, the heightened danger from predators who feared no dark. This vigil was both physically demanding and psychologically taxing. Hours stretched into what felt like an eternity, the passage of time marked only by the slow diminution of the embers and the increasing intensity of the cold. The keeper fought against boredom, against the seductive pull of exhaustion, keeping their mind alert, constantly aware of the profound responsibility they bore. The dark that swallowed sound and time was particularly menacing during this watch. The absence of light confused the senses, made every subtle sound from outside a potential threat. The keeper's unwavering vigilance was the critical shield against the unseen, the unheard, the unknown. The other members of the family, though sleeping, implicitly trusted the hearth's keeper. Their rest, however shallow, was dependent on this unwavering vigilance. The rhythmic crackle of the dwindling fire, the soft sounds of its tending, were reassuring anchors in the terrifying darkness. Someone always stayed awake, feeding the fire, guarding against the dark that swallowed sound and time. The hearth's keeper was a pervasive, fundamental craft of warmth for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring, life-giving flame, ensuring the torch of life was passed to another dawn. Stones that hold heat. In the brutal, unforgiving grip of an Ice Age winter, where the cold radiated relentlessly from the damp stone floors of caves, ingenuity went beyond mere fire. It sought to capture and extend warmth through simple yet profound means. Stones that hold heat were a vital, ancient technique. Rocks, heated intensely in the fire, were buried beneath the furs, creating a localized, persistent warmth that kept the floor from biting through the skin, a testament to clever adaptation that transformed cold, hard earth into a source of enduring comfort for cavemen. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, animal hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a surprising, gentle warmth rising from below. The sounds were no longer just the crackle of fire. They included the soft rustle of hides, the gentle breathing of a family huddled close, and the profound, comforting hum of collective life. Pelts piled thick on cold ground now concealed hidden sources of precious heat. The fire, carefully managed within its stone pit, was the source of this ingenious warmth. Large, flat stones, chosen for their density and heat retention properties, would be meticulously placed within the flames or directly on the glowing embers, allowing them to absorb intense heat for hours. These were the heating stones, silent, powerful batteries of warmth, destined to serve a vital purpose once the main fire began to dwindle. Listen to the soft sizzle as a heated stone, carefully extracted from the fire with sturdy sticks, was swiftly wrapped in layers of animal hide or thick, dry leaves to prevent direct skin contact. Hear the gentle grunts of men as they carefully place these wrapped, hot stones into shallow depressions dug into the earth beneath the main sleeping area. See the faint, rising steam from the damp earth, a visible sign of the heat penetrating the cold ground. Once buried beneath the furs and bedding, these stones would slowly, consistently radiate their stored heat upwards. This created a localized, gentle warmth that gradually spread through the sleeping area, effectively keeping the floor from biting through the skin. It was a profound difference from lying directly on raw, frozen stone, offering a more consistent, lingering warmth than the fire alone could provide from a distance. The benefits were immense. It combated the insidious cold that seeped up from the ground, preventing hypothermia and allowing for deeper, more restorative sleep. It eased aching muscles, soothed cold joints, and provided a profound psychological comfort, a tangible source of heat against the overwhelming frigidity of the Ice Age night. This technique was a testament to sophisticated understanding of thermodynamics and material properties. The careful selection of stones, the precise wrapping, the strategic placement, all were skills passed down through generations, part of the ancient art of survival. For the children nestled closest to the ground, the warmth rising from beneath the furs was a particular blessing, protecting their vulnerable bodies from the lethal chill. It allowed them to sleep more deeply, more securely, their small forms relaxed against the pervasive cold. Rocks heated in the fire and buried beneath the furs kept the floor from biting through the skin. Stones that hold heat were a pervasive, fundamental craft of warmth for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving warmth of their ingeniously heated earthen beds. The glow beneath the stars. While the sanctuary of the cave offered invaluable shelter, the nomadic life of Ice Age humans sometimes dictated a different, more exposed reality. There were times when no suitable cave was found or when a swift, temporary camp was needed on the vast, open plains. In such desperate circumstances, fire remained the ultimate defiance, but its protection was offered directly to the immense, indifferent cosmos. The glow beneath the stars was a precarious yet profound ritual. Sometimes the fire burned under open sky, sparks lifting into the frozen air like lost souls, a fragile, flickering beacon against the overwhelming darkness and the chilling gaze of the universe. Imagine the air, utterly frigid, sharp and brutal, stealing your breath, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of frozen ground, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the gentle breathing of sleeping families. They included the rhythmic crackle and pop of a vigorous fire, the distant, mournful howl of a wolf, and the ceaseless whisper of wind sweeping across a vast, open tundra. Moonlight over glaciers, now shining directly down, illuminated a tiny, defiant circle of light. A temporary camp on the open plains was a stark, vulnerable place. A crude windbreak of hides and branches might offer minimal protection, but the true shield against the lethal cold and the terrors of the night was the fire. It would be built directly on the frozen ground, often within a simple ring of stones or a shallow pit, its flames kept as large and as vigorous as possible to maximize warmth and light. Listen to the rhythmic crackle and pop of the burning wood, a constant, comforting symphony against the profound silence of the frozen night. Hear the sharp hiss of sap, the low roar of the flames, and the distant, chilling howl of a wolf, its voice seeming to mock the fragility of your warmth. See the dancing flames, their orange and red hues, pushing back the immediate darkness, illuminating the grim, watchful faces of your family huddled close. Sometimes the fire burned under open sky. Its light, no longer contained by cave walls, streamed upwards, a defiant column of warmth and illumination directly challenging the vast, encompassing darkness of the Ice Age night. Sparks, tiny and incandescent, would lift from the flames, soaring upwards into the frigid air, brief, ephemeral stars that danced against the backdrop of the true, indifferent cosmos, like lost souls momentarily freed. The warmth it offered was vital, but dispersed. In the open, the radiant heat quickly dissipated into the immense cold. Bodies, wrapped in every available hide and fur, were still constantly battling the pervasive chill. The fire was a constant, desperate battle, demanding ceaseless tending, relentless feeding of precious fuel, just to maintain its defiant glow. But the psychological comfort of the open fire was immense. It was a tangible assertion of human presence, a brave declaration against the overwhelming forces of nature. Its light pushed back the terrifying unknown, deterring predators, and offering a focal point for the small, vulnerable group. The sight of sparks lifting into the frozen air, ascending towards the indifferent stars, held a profound, almost spiritual significance, connecting their earthly struggle to the vast celestial order. The children, nestled close, would gaze upwards at the sparks, their small faces rapt, their imaginations ignited by the sight. For them, the fire was both a protector and a source of wonder, its defiant glow a promise of warmth in a cold, vast world. Sparks lifting into the frozen air like lost souls. The glow beneath the stars was a pervasive, fundamental craft of warmth for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring, fragile, and profoundly defiant warmth of their open fire, a testament to their unwavering will to survive against freezing dead. The nightlife of the ancients whispered stories in the dark. As the fire in the Ice Age cave dwindled to a low glow, casting long dancing shadows, and the vast, dark world outside pressed in with its profound cold and unseen terrors, another vital act of human survival unfolded. This was the ritual of whispered stories in the dark. Before sleep, they spoke of mammoths and spirits, their words soft and smoky in the still cave air, transforming the oppressive darkness into a canvas for the imagination, binding the small family group in shared memory, wisdom, and a profound sense of connection to their ancestors and the spirit world. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of a thriving fire. They included the low, hypnotic voice of the storyteller, the soft gasps of children, and the rhythmic breathing of a family preparing for sleep. Firelight flickering against rough timber beams and cave walls, illuminating ancient painted images and casting dynamic shadows that played tricks on the eyes. After the evening meal of roasted meat and collected roots and perhaps a period of quiet reflection, the family would gather closer to the hearth, its flames now carefully managed to a persistent glow. This was the moment for narrative, for the oral tradition that preserved their history, their beliefs, and their knowledge. The storyteller, often an elder or a respected hunter, would begin, their voice a low, rhythmic murmur that wove through the smoky air. Listen to the low, resonant voice of the storyteller describing ancient myths, tales of powerful animal spirits, of great hunters whose deeds secured their survival, of mischievous tricksters, or of the creation of the world itself. Hear the soft gasps of children, their eyes wide and fixed on the dancing shadows, their small imaginations populating the gloom with the creatures and heroes of the tales. See the elders, their faces etched with the hard-won wisdom of countless winters, listening intently, their own memories intertwining with the narrative. They spoke of mammoths and spirits. The narratives often centered on the magnificent animals that dominated their world, the colossal mammoths, the powerful bison, the cunning cave lion. These stories taught the young about the habits of the animals, the strategies of the hunt, the respect due to their spirits. They were lessons woven into narrative, preparing them for the harsh realities of their own lives, blurring the line between the physical hunt and the spiritual respect. But the stories also served a deeply practical and psychological purpose. They were a powerful way to keep the mind from dwelling on the deadly cold, the gnawing hunger, and the pervasive fear of the night. For a few precious hours, the captivating narrative could transport listeners away from the physical discomfort, offering a psychological escape. They also served as warnings, reinforcing the need for vigilance against unseen dangers. The flickering firelight casting its dancing shadows on the cave walls became an integral part of the storytelling. A hand held just so could cast the shadow of a leaping animal or a monstrous figure. The movement of the flames themselves could mimic a battle, a chase, a gathering of spirits, adding a layer of visual drama to the oral traditions. This communal act of storytelling was vital for social cohesion. It bound the small family group together, reinforcing their shared identity, their collective memory, their understanding of their place in the vast, frozen world. It was a ritual of cultural transmission, ensuring that the wisdom of the past was passed down to future generations, however fragile their existence. Before sleep, they spoke of mammoths and spirits, their words soft and smoky in the still cave air. Whispered stories in the dark were a pervasive, fundamental aspect of the nightlife of the ancients, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving warmth and wisdom of their shared narratives, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep, the rhythm of breathing. In the profound darkness and bone-chilling cold of an Ice Age winter, within the fragile sanctuary of a cave, sleep was rarely a deep, peaceful oblivion. It was a fragile, restless commodity, constantly interrupted by discomfort, by distant dangers, or by the gnawing anxieties of survival. Yet even in this fragmented repose, a deeper, more primal sound asserted itself, the rhythm of breathing. Sleep came in short bursts, broken by wind and shifting coals. But in those moments, peace was real, a profound, almost meditative connection to the enduring pulse of life, a testament to the quiet ingenuity of early humans. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a profound stillness. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of whispered stories. They included the soft, rhythmic breathing of many bodies, the occasional sigh, the gentle rustle of animal hides, and the low, comforting hum of collective life. Pelts piled thick on cold ground softly muffled the sounds, allowing the inner rhythms of the human huddle to prevail. As the fire dwindled to its lowest glow, casting long, dancing shadows, the small family group would settle into their sleeping circle, bodies pressed close. Exhaustion, a constant companion after a day of relentless hunting and foraging, would eventually claim them. But sleep was never absolute. It was shallow, easily broken by external stimuli or internal discomfort. Listen to the gentle, rhythmic breathing of your family members, their soft snores, the quiet whimpers of an infant nestled close. Hear the subtle shifts of bodies as someone adjusted their furs, trying to find a more comfortable position on the rough, cold ground. See the indistinct forms of the huddle in the dim light of the dying fire, a protective mound of human and animal life against the immense, cold emptiness outside. Sleep came in short bursts, broken by wind and shifting coals. The constant whistle of the wind probing cracks in the cave walls could easily rouse a light sleeper. The periodic crackle and shift of the fire, as coals settled or fuel was added by the hearth's keeper, would punctuate the stillness. These external disruptions, along with the internal discomforts of cold, hunger, or itching vermin, ensured that deep, uninterrupted sleep was a rare luxury. But in those moments, peace was real. Between the interruptions, in the brief lulls of external sound and internal discomfort, there were precious instances of true repose. In these fragile moments, the rhythm of breathing became an anchor, a profound, almost meditative connection to the enduring pulse of life. The collective breathing of the sleeping group created a subtle, comforting hum, a biological affirmation of their shared survival. This fragmented sleep, though exhausting, was a crucial adaptation. It allowed for periods of deep rest, followed by periods of lighter, more vigilant slumber, ensuring that the camp was never entirely unalert. The body learned to optimize its rest, snatching precious moments of oblivion whenever they presented themselves. The children, nestled closest to their parents, seemed to absorb this rhythm, their small bodies adapting to the intermittent nature of sleep. Their soft breathing, their quiet sighs, were muffled by the dense furs, creating a profound sense of protected intimacy. Sleep came in short bursts, broken by wind and shifting coals. But in those moments, peace was real. The rhythm of breathing was a pervasive, fundamental aspect of the nightlife of the ancients, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving pulse of their communal, fragmented rest. The child beneath the furs. In the brutal, unforgiving grip of an ice age winter, where life was a constant battle against cold, hunger, and predation, the most vulnerable members of the nomadic band were its children. Their small, fragile bodies, delicate against the lethal chill, represented the future, the very continuation of the tribe. The child beneath the furs was a profound testament to love and necessity. Infants slept between bodies, wrapped in skins that still smelled of the hunt. The tribe's future, guarded by warmth, by vigilance, and by the fierce, unwavering protection of the entire communal huddle. The child beneath the furs. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a palpable, almost suffocating closeness. The sounds were no longer the distant cries of predators. They included the soft, rhythmic breathing of many bodies, the occasional whimper of a dreaming infant, and the low, comforting hum of collective life. The glow of embers under buffalo hides, casting dancing shadows, illuminated faces etched with love and profound responsibility. As the fire dwindled to its lowest glow, casting long, dancing shadows, the family would arrange themselves for sleep in the deepest part of the cave. The infant, the most precious and vulnerable, would be nestled deepest within the human huddle, typically between its parents, its tiny body forming the very core of the protective circle. Listen to the soft, rhythmic breathing of the infant, its small chest rising and falling, a fragile pulse of life against the immense cold. Hear the gentle murmurs of a mother soothing her child, ensuring its comfort. See the infant's small, flushed face, its eyes closed in sleep, its tiny body almost completely enveloped by the thick layers of fur and the protective warmth of adult bodies. Infants slept between bodies, wrapped in skins that still smelled of the hunt. The skins, meticulously prepared buffalo robes or soft deer hides, would be layered around the child, creating a personal cocoon of warmth. These furs, still carrying the faint, wild scent of the animals from which they came, were not just blankets. They were a profound connection to the hunt, to the very means of their survival. Their familiar smell was a comforting presence for the child, linking it directly to the life-giving bounty of the land. The warmth provided by the surrounding bodies was immense, absolutely crucial. An infant, with its less developed thermoregulatory system, was particularly susceptible to hypothermia. The collective body heat of the parents and other close family members, radiating outwards, created a vital microclimate, ensuring the child's survival through the coldest hours of the night. The tribe's future, guarded by warmth. The child was not just an individual, it was the embodiment of hope, the continuation of their lineage, the future of the band. Its survival was a collective responsibility, a constant focus of vigilance and protective instinct. Any threat to the child, cold, hunger, illness, predators, was a threat to the entire group. Even in sleep, the parents would remain acutely aware of the child's presence, their senses tuned to any change in breathing, any sign of discomfort. A restless stir, a faint whimper would instantly rouse them, prompting a gentle check, a reassuring touch, a rearrangement of furs. Infants slept between bodies, wrapped in skins that still smelled of the hunt. The tribe's future, guarded by warmth. The child beneath the furs was a pervasive, fundamental aspect of the nightlife of the ancients, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving warmth and fierce, unwavering love that protected the most fragile sparks of human existence, the echo of dripping water. In the profound silence and bone-chilling cold of an Ice Age winter, within the ancient, unyielding walls of a cave, human life found a fragile sanctuary. Yet even here, nature asserted its subtle, persistent presence. The echo of dripping water was a peculiar, yet profoundly significant sound. From deep within the cave came a steady, rhythmic sound, the earth's heartbeat in the coldest months, a constant muffled counterpoint to the quiet endurance of sleeping humans, amplifying both the pervasive cold and the subtle promise of life. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a profound stillness. The sounds were no longer the distant cries of predators. They included the soft crackle of a dwindling fire, the gentle breathing of a family in fitful sleep, and the rhythmic, almost hypnotic plink of water droplets. Moonlight over glaciers, now illuminating the cave mouth, emphasized the deep, resonant silence within. As the deepest cold of the night permeated the cave, even its thick stone walls could not entirely seal off the subtle movements of water. Deep within the rock, perhaps where a subterranean spring flowed, or where meltwater from the surface slowly seeped through fissures, a constant, gentle process would occur. Water released from the grip of ice would slowly, inexorably drip. Listen to the steady, rhythmic plink, plink, plink of water droplets, echoing from deep within the cave's dark recesses. Hear the subtle reverberation of each drop against cold stone, a soft, insistent sound that broke the profound silence without truly disturbing it. See the faint shimmer of light, perhaps from a distant ember, catching the surface of a small, unseen pool, reflecting the tiny, rhythmic ripples. From deep within the cave came a steady sound, the earth's heartbeat in the coldest months. This dripping water was more than just an auditory phenomenon. It was a profound symbol. It spoke of the slow, relentless power of nature, of water's capacity to carve stone, to flow even in the depths of winter. It was a reminder that deep beneath the frozen surface, life, in its most elemental form, persisted, defying the grip of ice. For the sleeping humans, the echo of dripping water was both a comfort and a subtle source of unease. On one hand, it was a reminder of the presence of fresh water, a vital resource for survival. It was a rhythmic, almost meditative sound that could lull one into a deeper sleep, a gentle counterpoint to the more unsettling sounds of the night. On the other hand, it also amplified the sense of pervasive cold. The sound of water, however subtle, inherently implied dampness, and dampness, in sub-zero temperatures, was a lethal enemy. It underscored the constant battle against moisture, against the insidious creep of cold that penetrated even the thickest furs. The children, nestled deep in their furs, might stir, their small ears attuned to the strange, rhythmic sound. You would pull them closer, murmuring reassurances, but your own mind would be contemplating the deeper meaning of the dripping water, its promise of life, its chilling connection to the relentless cold. The echo of dripping water was a pervasive, fundamental aspect of the nightlife of the ancients, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of processing their world, its subtle dangers, and its profound mysteries. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving pulse of the earth, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep, dreams of the hunt. In the profound darkness and bone-chilling cold of an Ice Age winter, where life was a ceaseless battle against nature and scarcity, sleep was rarely a deep, peaceful oblivion. It was a fragile, restless commodity, constantly interrupted by discomfort and danger. Yet even when exhaustion finally claimed them, the mind, in its peculiar freedom, sometimes offered a different kind of sustenance. Dreams of the hunt. Even in sleep, the mind chased shadows, animals, light, and fire. Dreams became lessons for the next dawn, shaping their spiritual landscape and bolstering their resolve against the overwhelming hardship. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the profound stillness of a sleeping camp. The sounds were no longer the gentle breathing of sleeping families. They included the low murmur of subconscious calls, the rustle of hides, and the subtle shifts of bodies in their restless sleep. The glow of embers under buffalo hides casting dancing shadows might flicker to reveal faces caught in the throes of vivid dreams. You would be deep in a restless sleep, perhaps finally finding a brief reprieve from the cold or hunger when the dream would begin. It would be vivid, visceral, utterly convincing. You would see yourself on the vast, sun-drenched plains, not barren and snow-covered, but green and vibrant. The air would be warm, carrying the scent of rich earth and wildflowers. And then the animals. Vast herds of mammoths, bison, reindeer, their shaggy forms thundering across the plains, their immense bodies a promise of boundless meat, hide and bone. You would be among the hunters, swift and strong, your spear or bow in hand, moving with skill and precision, pursuing the magnificent beasts, the thrill of the chase, the tension of the stalk, the powerful surge of adrenaline. These would feel utterly real. Listen to the thundering hooves of the prey, the shouts of the hunters, the whistle of arrows, the heavy thud of a successful kill. Hear the triumphant cries, the joyous exclamations. See the massive body of the animal falling onto the green grass, its dark, rich blood steaming in the warm sun, a symbol of life, of sustenance, of survival. The dreams were often a profound psychological comfort. They offered a fleeting escape from the grim realities of winter, the gnawing hunger, the pervasive cold, the constant fear of scarcity. For a brief, precious moment, the mind could revel in abundance, in warmth, in the exhilaration of a successful hunt, a powerful contrast to their waking struggles. But beyond mere comfort, these dreams were also seen as vital spiritual communications. The animals, deeply sacred, were often seen as spiritual guides, their images appearing in dreams to offer blessings, warnings, or guidance for future hunts. Dreams of warmer days, of abundant harvests if they practiced agriculture, were not just wishful thinking, they were powerful promises, a spiritual affirmation that the cold, hard winter would eventually pass. Dreams became lessons for the next dawn. Upon waking, the dream would still cling to you, its shadow refusing to lift entirely. You would share it with your family or with the shaman, seeking interpretation and guidance. The telling of the dream was an important ritual, a way to externalize the hope, to reinforce the belief in future bounty, to strengthen the collective resolve of the band. Even in sleep, the mind chased shadows, animals, light, and fire. Dreams of the hunt were a pervasive, fundamental aspect of the nightlife of the ancients, transforming their restless sleep into a profound spiritual experience. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving promise of their dreamscapes, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The tools of survival. The firemaker's art. In the bone-chilling depths of the Ice Age, where temperatures plummeted to lethal extremes and the wilderness teemed with dangerous predators, fire was humanity's ultimate defiance against a world designed to freeze. It was more than a tool, it was the very essence of life, warmth, and protection. The firemaker's art was a revered, vital skill. Flint and pyrite struck in sparks, every flame a triumph wrestled from stone, a profound act of ingenuity that defied nature's cruelty, transforming the raw, unforgiving elements into the pulsating heart of human survival. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the soft breathing of sleeping families. They included the sharp, rhythmic click of flint against pyrite, the gentle blowing of breath, and the triumphant crackle of nascent flames. Sparks rising from a smouldering hearth, tiny, incandescent stars danced upwards into the vast, dark cave, born from the mastery of stone and iron. The creation of fire, particularly in extreme cold and damp conditions, was a meticulous, highly skilled art. It began with the careful selection and preparation of tools, a piece of flint, sharp-edged and unyielding, and a nodule of iron pyrite, both readily available in many Stone Age environments. Crucially, dry tinder had to be gathered and preserved with extreme care. A small bundle of shredded bark, dried grass, or fibrous plant fluff, desiccated and ready to catch the slightest spark. This tinder was treasured, safeguarded, its dryness paramount. Listen to the focused, rhythmic click of flint against pyrite, a sharp, metallic sound echoing in the hushed cave, as the firemaker, often an elder or a designated, skilled individual, brought the two stones together with swift, powerful strikes. Hear the excited gasps of children as tiny, ephemeral sparks would fly, brief, incandescent stars against the deepening gloom, each one a potential spark of life. A small puff of smoke, thin and tentative, would be the first sign of success. A wave of relief might ripple through the gathered family. Then, with infinite care, the tinder bundle, now holding a glowing, nascent ember, would be gently lifted. The firemaker would bring it to his lips, blowing softly, steadily, with slow, measured breaths, nurturing the tiny spark, feeding it with the very breath of life, willing it to grow into flame. The ember would glow brighter, deepening to an orange blush, then sending a tiny tendril of smoke curling upwards. And then a flicker. A tentative orange flame, small and vulnerable, would lick at the dry tinder, growing slowly, hesitantly. The smell of burning wood, sharp and clean, would begin to permeate the smoky air, pushing back the stale scents of the night, asserting its presence. Every flame a triumph wrestled from stone. This was more than just starting a fire. It was a profound daily act of creation, a defiant declaration against the overwhelming forces of darkness, cold, and the unknown. The mastery of fire transformed a terrifying, exposed existence into a fragile, flickering haven, allowing humanity to not just survive, but to thrive in environments that would otherwise be lethal. The firemaker's art was a pervasive, fundamental tool of survival for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring, life-giving flame, ensuring the torch of life was passed to another dawn, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The bone needle. In the brutal, unforgiving grip of the Ice Age, where exposed flesh meant swift death, clothing was not a luxury but an absolute life-saving necessity. The thick, insulating furs of hunted animals were essential, but merely draping them offered insufficient protection against the biting winds and lethal cold. This profound necessity drove one of humanity's most revolutionary technological advancements, the bone needle. With tendon and hide, they stitched warmth into every seam, shaping clothing that outlasted storms, marking a pivotal moment in human ingenuity and the endless struggle against the cold. The bone needle. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the earthy scent of cured hide, mingled with the pungent aroma of wood smoke and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of fire or the rhythmic scraping of stone tools. They included the precise, delicate tap of a bone needle piercing thick leather, the soft scrape of a sinew thread being pulled through, and the hushed murmurs of concentration. Pelts piled thick on cold ground, now transformed into intricate garments, illuminated by the flickering firelight, became the soft, warm heart of their fragile sanctuary. The invention of the bone needle, emerging in the Upper Paleolithic period, was a game-changer for Ice Age survival. These were not the fine steel needles of later eras, but exquisitely crafted tools, honed from bone, ivory, or antler, their points sharpened to a fine tip, their eyes drilled with remarkable precision. The thread was equally ingenious, fine strips of animal sinew, carefully separated and dried, or strong, flexible plant fibers, twisted and braided. Listen to the precise, rhythmic tap of the bone needle as it pierced the thick, cured animal hide, a sound of focused, meticulous effort. Hear the soft scrape of the sinew thread being pulled through the tiny hole, binding one piece of fur to another. See the careful, deliberate movements of the artisan's hands, shaping the stiff hides into functional, insulated clothing, tunics, leggings, hooded parkas, and, crucially, tight-fitting sleeping covers. With tendon and hide, they stitched warmth into every seam. The ability to sew allowed for the creation of tailored, form-fitting garments that trapped body heat far more efficiently than simple draped skins. Hides could be cut and fitted, overlapping seams meticulously sewn and often sealed with tree resin or animal fat, creating remarkably windproof and insulated layers. This meticulous craftsmanship was essential for retaining body heat, transforming fragile human bodies into resilient, mobile fortresses against the cold. Beyond clothing, the bone needle was vital for creating insulated bedding. Multiple layers of furs could be stitched together to create thick, sleeping robes or bags, providing superior warmth and protection when huddled on the cold cave floor. These sleeping covers became a communal shield, enveloping entire families in a shared, insulated warmth. The craftsmanship involved was astonishing. The tools themselves were often adorned with intricate carvings, suggesting a deeper aesthetic and spiritual significance to this vital work. The sewing was not just practical, it was an act of profound human creativity, transforming raw materials into sophisticated technologies of survival, shaping clothing that outlasted storms. The bone needle was a pervasive, fundamental tool of survival for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast skies, forever protected by the life-giving warmth and resilience of their meticulously crafted animal skins, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The mammoth shelter. In the vast, treeless expanses of the Ice Age tundra, where natural caves were scarce and timber for traditional structures was non-existent, humanity's ingenuity faced its ultimate test. The mammoth shelter was a profound testament to adaptation. Beyond caves, mammoth bones formed walls, tusks curved like arches, hides stretched tight as roofs, transforming the remains of hunted giants into colossal, resilient dwellings. This was a monumental act of construction, a deep understanding of resourcefulness that created life-saving homes in a world designed to freeze. Imagine the air, utterly frigid, thick with the pungent aroma of dried hide, mingled with the earthy scent of frozen ground, bone, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of fire or the rhythmic scraping of tools. They included the low murmur of communal effort, the creak of stretching hides, and the subtle shift of immense, interlocking bones. Moonlight over glaciers, now reflected on the towering skeletal frames of mammoth shelters, illuminated a world where ingenuity built homes from the very beasts they hunted. The mammoth shelter, a complex and highly specialized dwelling, was a marvel of Ice Age engineering. It began with the colossal bones of woolly mammoths, animals that provided not only meat and hides, but also the very structural framework for human habitation. Skulls, femurs, and vertebrae, massive and incredibly strong, were carefully arranged to form the foundation and lower walls, providing a sturdy, wind-resistant base. Listen to the low grunts of hunters and builders, maneuvering immense mammoth bones into place, their collective strength pushing against the cold, unyielding weight. Hear the rhythmic scraping of stone tools, trimming and shaping the bones to interlock more effectively. See the towering tusks, incredibly long and curving, ingeniously placed to form the arched entranceways or to support the main roof structure, their elegant curves creating a natural, imposing facade. Mammoth bones formed walls. Tusks curved like arches. The larger bones created a formidable, insulating barrier against the biting winds and the creeping cold. Their hollow interiors could be packed with insulating materials like moss, grass, or earth, further enhancing the thermal properties of the structure. The sheer scale of these structures, often housing multiple families, dwarfed any other contemporary human dwelling. Over this skeletal framework, immense mammoth hides, meticulously scraped, tanned, and often sewn together, were stretched tight as roofs. These heavy, multi-layered hides, perhaps also insulated with more grasses or moss, provided a crucial, windproof and waterproof covering. They trapped vital body heat within, transforming the exposed tundra into a surprisingly warm and breathable interior. The construction was a communal, arduous effort, demanding immense collective strength, specialized knowledge, and a deep understanding of structural mechanics. It represented a profound adaptation to the treeless environment, using the most abundant and vital resource, the mammoth, to create not just tools and food, but homes. For the families nestled within, the mammoth shelter was more than just a house. It was a profound symbol of their connection to the land, their mastery over its largest beasts, and their unyielding will to survive. It was a testament to human cooperation, to the shared knowledge passed down through generations, ensuring their endurance against the harshest winters. Mammoth bones formed walls. Tusks curved like arches, hides stretched tight as roofs. The mammoth shelter was a pervasive, fundamental tool of survival for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving warmth and resilience of their colossal, ingenious homes, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The gathering of moss. In the brutal, bone-chilling depths of an Ice Age winter, where every degree of warmth was fought for and every crack in the shelter was a vulnerability, human ingenuity extended to the humblest elements of the landscape. The gathering of moss was a vital, meticulous task. Dry moss-filled bedding and stuffed cracks in the rock, sealing in precious heat, transforming a common plant into a crucial insulator, a testament to ancient resourcefulness that created pockets of warmth against the pervasive cold and dampness of their stone shelters. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the earthy scent of damp stone, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the dry, clean aroma of moss. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of fire. They included the soft rustle of dried plant matter, the gentle breathing of a family huddled close, and the profound, comforting hum of collective life. Pelts piled thick on cold ground, now resting on layers of soft moss, illuminated by flickering firelight, became the soft, warm heart of their fragile sanctuary. While animal hides provided the primary insulation and fire offered radiant heat, the subtle art of sealing their shelter was equally critical. Caves, however deep, often had fissures, small cracks in the rock walls or ceiling where insidious cold drafts could penetrate. Mammoth bone or hide structures too had inevitable gaps. This is where moss became indispensable. Listen to the gentle scrape of hands against cold, damp rock, carefully peeling away thick clumps of moss. Hear the rustle of dried moss as it was meticulously packed into crevices, shoved into gaps between stones, or woven into the base of a hide tent. See the children, their small hands diligently working, learning early the profound value of this humble plant. dry moss-filled bedding and stuffed cracks in the rock. The moss, often sphagnum or other dense varieties, was carefully collected during warmer months, then dried thoroughly near the fire. Its cellular structure, designed to retain moisture, also made it an excellent insulator when dry, trapping countless tiny pockets of air. This trapped air acted as a powerful thermal barrier, preventing heat from escaping and cold from penetrating. The moss was used in multiple ways. Firstly, it was packed into any discernible crack or fissure in the cave walls or ceiling, effectively sealing off cold drafts, minimizing heat loss. Secondly, it was spread as a thick, insulating layer beneath animal hides for bedding, providing both cushioning and a vital thermal break from the frozen ground. Thirdly, it might be used to stuff the seams of hide garments or to line footwear, providing extra warmth. The sheer meticulousness of this task was a testament to the importance placed on warmth. Every small gap was a potential point of failure, a breach in their fragile thermal defense. The communal effort to gather and place the moss was a silent, patient battle against the elements, ensuring the maximum retention of precious heat. For the children, nestled deepest in their furs and bedding, the layers of soft moss added a subtle comfort, transforming the harsh cave floor into something more yielding. It protected their vulnerable bodies from the lethal chill that otherwise radiated from the stone. Dry moss-filled bedding and stuffed cracks in the rock, sealing in precious heat. The gathering of moss was a pervasive, fundamental tool of survival for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving warmth and resilience of their ingeniously insulated stone shelters, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The ash blanket, in the brutal, bone-chilling depths of an Ice Age winter, where fire was life itself, its precious flame could never be left to chance. To lose it in the long, dark nights was to invite swift, brutal death. The ash blanket was a profound, ingenious ritual. When fire died down, they covered coals in ash, sleeping beside warmth that breathed through the night, a subtle, ceaseless vigil that ensured the spark of life would endure until dawn, guarding against the terrifying prospect of a fireless, lethal night. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of a thriving fire. They included the soft hiss of dwindling embers, the anxious whispers of fire tenders, and the profound, almost eerie silence of a hearth fighting for life. The glow of embers under buffalo hides, casting dancing shadows, slowly faded to a deep, tenacious red, kept alive by the silent, watchful attention of the firekeeper. The fire, carefully built within a central hearth circle of stones, was meticulously tended. Fuel, precious and constantly scarce in winter, had to be conserved with extreme care. The goal was not to maintain a roaring blaze throughout the night, but to preserve the glowing heart of the fire, its embers, until the morning, ensuring that it could be easily rekindled without the arduous and cold task of striking a new spark from flint and pyrite. Listen to the soft, rhythmic breathing of the designated fire tender, often an elder or a particularly vigilant adult, as they knelt by the hearth. Hear the gentle scrape of a crude stick or piece of bone, carefully raking the glowing embers into a compact pile. See the subtle movements of their hands, meticulously covering the hot coals with a thick layer of fine grey ash, insulating them, preserving their heat. This ash blanket was crucial. It choked off the oxygen just enough to prevent the embers from flaring up, and consuming the remaining fuel too quickly, but not so much that they died completely. The ash acted as a natural insulator, a thermal blanket, trapping the heat within the core of the embers, allowing them to smolder slowly, deeply, for many hours, radiating a fragile, persistent warmth. Sleeping beside warmth that breathed through the night was a profound psychological comfort. The minimal heat emanating from the banked embers, however subtle, was a tangible connection to life. It was a visible sign that the cold had not entirely won, that a precious spark of warmth and life persisted in the profound darkness. The ash blanket, therefore, was not merely a way to preserve fire, it was a way to preserve hope, to defy the absolute frigidity of the Ice Age night. The cold, however, was a persistent adversary. It permeated the cave, testing the fire tenders' endurance, tempting them with the seductive lure of sleep. They would shiver, huddle deeper into their furs, but their gaze remained fixed, unwavering. They understood the profound consequences of failure, the rapid onset of hypothermia for the sleeping group, the heightened danger from predators who feared no dark. This vigil was both physically demanding and psychologically taxing. Hours stretched into what felt like an eternity, the passage of time marked only by the slow diminution of the embers and the increasing intensity of the cold. When fire died, they covered coals in ash, sleeping beside warmth that breathed through the night. The ash blanket was a pervasive, fundamental tool of survival for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring, life-giving flame, ensuring the torch of life was passed to another dawn, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. Dawn of survival, the morning frost. After the agonizing eternity of the Ice Age night, with its crushing darkness, its relentless cold, and its constant unseen terrors, a deep, primal yearning settled over the restless watchers and the shallowly sleeping family. It was a profound longing for the end of the vigil, for the lifting of the oppressive gloom. And then, at last, it would come, the morning frost. When dawn came, frost dusted their hair, yet bodies still steamed with life, a stark reminder of winter's lingering grip, transforming the end of night into a moment of complex relief, dread, and unwavering resolution. Imagine the air inside the cave, utterly frigid, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a profound chill that felt sharper than before. The sounds were no longer the soft crackle of a dwindling fire. They included the low groan of a restless elder, the quiet whimpers of a cold child, and the muffled breathing of a family preparing for the inevitable awakening. The soft rustle of hides beneath worn blankets would accompany the first visible breath of the new day. You would be roused from a shallow, fitful sleep, perhaps by the cold itself, or by an internal clock, a primal awareness that the turning of the night was at hand. The cave would still be in near absolute darkness, the embers of the fire having dwindled to their lowest, most precarious point. Your breath, when exhaled, would plume in dense white clouds, a stark, visible affirmation of the cold that permeated everything. Listen to the soft, rhythmic breathing of your family members, their subtle shifts, the occasional cough. Hear the pervasive silence that settled over the cave in these deepest hours, amplifying every subtle sound, every creak of timber, every rustle of hides. See the indistinct forms of your family huddled together, a fragile mound of life against the overwhelming cold. Then, as the first faint light began to seep through the cave mouth, or a small gap in the hide coverings, a ghostly luminescence would be revealed. When dawn came, frost dusted their hair, a delicate, crystalline filigree outlining the rough texture of the furs that served as their clothing and bedding. It glittered faintly, a cold sparkle, transforming the familiar into something ethereal, yet starkly real. On the interior of the cave walls, on any exposed surface of leather or bone, a thin layer of ice would have formed, a chilling declaration of winter's triumph. The air itself, though slowly lightening, would carry a sharp, biting quality that made it sting the lungs with every inhale, yet bodies still steamed with life. Despite the overwhelming cold, despite the frost clinging to their hair and furs, a subtle mist would rise from their bodies, a visible sign of their enduring warmth, their continued metabolic fight against hypothermia. It was a profound declaration of life, a defiant assertion against the cold embrace of winter. The designated fire tender, or the head of the household, would begin the ritual of rekindling. With a crude stick, they would carefully stir the ashes, seeking the precious, persistent heart of the fire. With painstaking care, they would add tiny, dry twigs, blowing gently, coaxing a tentative flame back to life. As the fire was stirred alive again, its first fragile glow would catch the frost, making it sparkle, momentarily transforming the chilling beauty into a symbol of renewed hope. When dawn came, frost dusted their hair, yet bodies still steamed with life. The morning frost was a pervasive, fundamental reality for cavemen, transforming the end of night into a moment of complex fear and unwavering resolution. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast frozen skies, forever tethered to the unwavering spirit of their shared survival, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The hunter's return. As the pale light of dawn crept across the frozen plains, slowly pushing back the vast, terrifying darkness of the Ice Age night, a palpable shift in the atmosphere of the cave occurred. The long vigil had been endured, the fire rekindled, and the immediate threat of cold receded. Now, a new anticipation, a profound, hopeful tension gripped the gathered family. The hunter's return was a moment of immense significance. From the white expanse, the hunters came back, carrying meat, furs, and stories of survival, bringing not just sustenance, but also reassurance, knowledge, and the enduring strength of the tribe. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and damp earth, mingled with the subtle tang of human presence now permeated by the growing light and the sharp scent of the outside world. The sounds were no longer just the crackle of fire. They included the low murmur of anticipation, the quiet stirrings of children, and then, faintly, the muffled crunch of footsteps on fresh snow. Moonlight over glaciers, now softened by dawn, illuminated the path of their approach. The hunters, often the strongest and most skilled men of the band, would have departed before the first light. Their departure, a quiet, resolute act of courage. Their journey into the frozen, dangerous wilderness was for one purpose: to bring back meat, the lifeblood of the tribe, the essential fuel for their internal furnaces against the cold. Listen to the distant, muffled crunch of footsteps on fresh snow, growing steadily louder, a sound of profound relief and mounting excitement. Hear the low, guttural calls of the returning hunters, signaling their presence, their success, their safe arrival. See their figures, strong and resilient, wrapped in thick buffalo robes, emerging from the vast, white expanse of the plains, their forms silhouetted against the pale dawn sky. They came back carrying meat, slung over their shoulders or dragged behind them the dark, heavy form of a freshly killed reindeer, a bison calf, or a smaller animal. Its presence was a tangible promise of nourishment, a temporary end to the gnawing hunger that had plagued the camp. The sight of the fresh kill would bring a wave of profound relief, a collective sigh of gratitude, knowing that the tribe would eat. They came back carrying furs, perhaps a thick bear pelt, a valuable addition to their bedding or clothing, a new layer of defense against the biting cold, or the smaller, softer skins of foxes or wolves to be meticulously prepared and crafted into essential garments. These were the secondary bounties of the hunt, equally vital for their endurance, and they came back carrying stories of survival, tales of the arduous chase, of tracking animals through deep snow, of encounters with cunning predators, of battling a sudden blizzard. These were not just narratives of adventure, they were lessons, knowledge, insights into the habits of the animals, the dangers of the land, the strategies for future hunts. They were whispered by the firelight, absorbing the wisdom and reinforcing the bonds of brotherhood. The children, seeing the return of their fathers, their brothers, their faces bright with a mixture of relief and excitement, would rush forward, their small forms eager to greet the returning heroes. Their innocence, though always present, was tempered by an understanding of the immense courage required for such a journey. From the white expanse, the hunters came back carrying meat, furs, and stories of survival. The hunter's return was a pervasive, fundamental ritual for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving courage of the hunt, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep. The Frozen River's Song. As the pale light of dawn crept across the frozen plains and the hunters returned with their life-giving bounty, another essential ritual of Ice Age survival commenced. The river, a colossal artery of life, had long since succumbed to winter's embrace, its once flowing waters locked solid under immense sheets of ice. But even in its frozen state, it remained vital. The frozen river's song was a peculiar, chilling reality. They drank from ice-crusted streams, cold biting but pure. The rhythmic chipping of ice, the whisper of its surface, a constant reminder of winter, unbroken, yet an enduring source of profound necessity. Imagine the air, utterly frigid, sharp and brutal, stinging any exposed skin, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, tanned hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the simple chatter of a living family. They included the crisp crunch of footsteps on fresh snow, the rhythmic chip of flint against ice, and the low murmur of cautious voices. Moonlight over glaciers, now softened by dawn, illuminated the ice-crusted banks of a stream. Water was as vital as fire for survival, yet in the depths of winter it was a resource transformed. Open streams were rare, often frozen solid, and stagnant pools were dangerous, potentially harboring disease. The purest source was often the river itself or its tributaries, locked beneath a thick, unyielding layer of ice. Listen to the rhythmic chip, chip, chip of a sharp flint axe or a bone pick, striking against the hard, unyielding surface of the ice. Hear the low grunts of exertion as men labored to break through the thick, crystalline barrier. See the small, dark hole, painstakingly created, revealing the clear, cold water flowing beneath, a lifeline to their very existence. They drank from ice-crusted streams, cold-biting but pure. The water, once freed from its frozen prison, would be drawn with cupped hands or in crude containers of hide or hollowed bone. Its cold, biting touch would send a sharp jolt through your teeth, a painful shock to your mouth, but its purity was absolute, its life-giving properties undeniable. It slaked the profound thirst, rehydrating bodies perpetually dehydrated by the dry, cold air. This ritual was a dangerous one. The ice itself was treacherous, capable of cracking underfoot, plunging an unwary individual into the lethal, frigid waters below. The banks could be slippery, the currents beneath the ice surprisingly strong. Vigilance was paramount, and the task was often undertaken by the strongest, most experienced members of the band. The psychological impact of the Frozen Rivers song was profound. It was a constant, tangible reminder of winter unbroken, of nature's immense, unyielding power. The rhythmic chipping of ice, the sheer effort required to access water, underscored the harsh realities of their environment. Yet the purity of the water, the fundamental necessity it provided, also offered a profound sense of perseverance, a testament to their unwavering will to survive. For the children, the sight of the water, drawn from its icy prison, was a simple, profound blessing. They learned early the value of pure water, the dangers of its absence, and the immense labor required to obtain it in winter. The rhythmic chipping of ice, the whisper of its surface, a constant reminder of winter unbroken. The Frozen Rivers song was a pervasive, fundamental reality for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the life-giving purity of water, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep, fire again. As the first pale light of dawn crept across the frozen plains, and the hunters returned with their life-giving bounty, a crucial, ancient ritual would unfold at the heart of the cave. The warmth from the banked embers might have dwindled to almost nothing, the chill profound. But the day, like all days, began and ended the same way, endowed with fire. Fire again was a profound declaration of human resilience, the one thing the cold could never steal, transforming a precarious spark into the lifeblood of warmth, cooking, and communal existence, forever tethering their survival to its enduring flame. Imagine the air inside the cave, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingled with the earthy scent of damp stone animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence now permeated by the growing light and the anticipation of warmth. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of a dwindling fire. They included the low murmur of anticipation, the gentle blowing of breath, and the triumphant roar of nascent flames. The glow of embers under buffalo hides, casting dancing shadows, slowly flared into vibrant life. You would move with the familiar, protesting rhythm of the newly awakened hunter-gatherer. Your body, stiff and aching from the cold and the restless turns on the hide bed, slowly began to respond. The cave would still be in near absolute darkness, the embers of the hearth having dwindled to their lowest, most precarious point. Your breath, when exhaled, would plume in dense, white clouds, a stark, visible affirmation of the cold that permeated everything. Listen to the soft, rhythmic breathing of your family members, their subtle shifts, the occasional cough. Hear the pervasive silence that settled over the cave in these deepest hours, amplifying every subtle sound, every creak of timber, every rustle of hides. See the indistinct forms of your family huddled together, a fragile mound of life against the overwhelming cold. The designated fire tender, or the head of the household, would begin the ritual of rekindling. With a crude stick, they would carefully stir the ashes, seeking the precious, persistent heart of the fire. With painstaking care, they would add tiny, dry twigs blowing gently, coaxing a tentative flame back to life. This was a vital act, for the promise of the new day depended on the survival of this fragile spark. As the embers deepened to a glowing orange, then sent a tiny tendril of smoke curling upwards, a flicker of flame would appear. This was the moment of triumph. Fire again. More kindling, then larger pieces of wood would be added. The fire would respond, growing in strength, its light pushing back the oppressive darkness, gradually illuminating the cave walls, bringing its familiar shapes back into view. The cold, though still present, would feel less lethal, less absolute. The warmth that emanated from this reborn fire was immediate and profound. Hands, numbed by the cold, would be held out to the flames, absorbing the gentle caress of the heat. Bodies, stiff and shivering, would visibly relax as they absorbed its radiant energy, allowing exhausted muscles a chance to thaw, to recover. It was a profound, visceral comfort, a slow thawing of the night's deep chill. Always the day began and ended the same way. With fire, the one thing the cold could never steal. Fire again was a pervasive, fundamental ritual for cavemen, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It was a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever tethered to the enduring, life-giving flame, ensuring the torch of life was passed to another dawn, a profound secret of how cavemen had the warmest sleep, the warm memory of endurance. The sun, having witnessed countless brutal Ice Age winters, countless struggles for life in the frozen caves and on the treacherous plains, now cast its first hesitant light on another dawn. The long, terrifying night had passed, its immediate dangers receding with the shadows. The cold still bit, the snow still lay deep, but another season of hardship had been weathered. For cavemen, the story of winter was ultimately one of triumph. Long after the Ice Age passed, warmth remained in the stories. The caves and the bones that dreamed beside embers, an enduring testament to their quiet endurance, a profound legacy of human resilience that echoes through the vast, silent landscape of history. Imagine the air, crisp and clean, thick with the subtle scent of old hides, damp earth, and the pervasive aroma of wood smoke mingled with the low hum of ancestral stories. The sounds are no longer the distant howl of the wind. They include the rhythmic beat of a tribal drum, the low murmur of elders recounting ancient tales, and the soft strains of ceremonial songs, all echoing the profound lessons of past winters. Moonlight over glaciers, now a distant memory, illuminates the enduring spirit of survival. The fire, the primary source of all warmth, was at the heart of their survival. Meticulously managed, carefully banked, its embers nurtured through the longest nights. It provided the essential heat for bodies, for cooking, and for psychological comfort. Its crackle and glow were the constant pulse of life, a defiant beacon against the overwhelming darkness and cold. This mastery of fire was humanity's first, most crucial victory against nature's cruelty. Listen to the echoes of their ingenuity in modern survival techniques, the principles of insulation, the value of communal warmth, the strategies for fire management, the deep understanding of animal behavior. Hear the faint whispers of their language in the very structure of human thought, their capacity for adaptation, shaping our own. See the enduring forms of caves, the silent, ancient witnesses to their struggles, now hallowed spaces of human memory. Long after the Ice Age passed, warmth remained in the stories, the caves and the bones that dreamed beside embers. Their stories, passed down through generations, Recounting hunts, migrations, and the wisdom of elders became a vital cultural legacy. These narratives kept the memory of survival alive, teaching future generations the value of courage, cooperation, and resilience. The caves themselves, their walls adorned with magnificent paintings, became powerful repositories of memory. These images, born from dreams and waking visions, spoke of their connection to the animal world, their spiritual beliefs, and their profound artistic expression. They are a tangible link to those who slept there, warmed by their fires, protected by their ingenuity. The bones that dreamed beside embers were not just physical remains, they were silent testaments to a life lived on the edge, a legacy of endurance etched into the very earth. Their physical presence, their careful burials within the caves, affirmed a profound connection between the living and the dead, ensuring that the wisdom of the ancestors continued to watch over the tribe. This was the warm memory of endurance. It was a holistic approach to survival, blending physical ingenuity with spiritual belief, individual resilience with communal strength. It allowed cavemen to not just survive, but to thrive, to build rich cultures, complex societies, and profound spiritual connections to a land that was both beautiful and brutally demanding. Long after the Ice Age passed, warmth remained in the stories, the caves, and the bones that dreamed beside embers. The warm memory of endurance is a pervasive, fundamental reality for humanity, transforming their raw ingenuity into the very means of defying a lethal environment. It is a calm, earthy drift through flickering firelight and echoing caves, charting the ancient art of survival and enduring countless nights under vast, frozen skies, forever embedded in the enduring memory of their profound, humble survival. A constant reminder of the strength found in quiet endurance and the warmth that truly kept them alive through the freezing winters.